It's official, Andor Season 2 is gonna confirm Luthen's backstory. Tony Gilroy says we're about to learn his origins. Oh my goodness, I'm somehow even more hyped. Hey guys, welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Today we've got some pretty huge things to discuss, mostly on the Andor front. Let's dive straight in. As we approach Andor Season 2, Tony Gilroy's been giving more interviews. Yesterday he spoke with Rotten Tomatoes, and he also did a live stream on the official Star Wars YouTube channel. Amongst all of the things he said, there were one or two moments which really stood out, and those are the ones I really feel are worth addressing. Let's begin with the politics of Andor Season 2. Tony addresses the elephant in the room. Is Season 2 going to reflect the very divisive political framework of the world we live in today? And Tony Gilroy was asked about this, but he wants to remind fans, Season 2 was written and filmed way before the 2024 election. It's not trying to isolate. Similar to the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, while there are certain events which are based on historic events, conflicts and revolutions, the crux of the season is grounded in Star Wars-y politics leading up to Rogue One, the struggles of the rebellion. So while we do live in such an uncertain and kind of crazy time at the moment, whatever your political affiliation, there are certainly parallels you can find. But Tony Gilroy was saying, the second season was not written to reflect the end of 2024. With all of the political tensions of the modern world, we all need a bit of escapism. Gilroy also addresses the timely nature of Season 2 and how important it was to get it right, notably sticking the landing on the final season and not disappointing fans. And he contrasts this to shows which did disappoint. He said, quote, "You see some other shows," and then he pauses, "that had trouble sticking the landing." And then he started chuckling a bit. And in my opinion, this was his way of saying, I saw the way fans reacted to the other shows. When you're talking about mixed reception to Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, notably The Acolyte, I think unlike some other showrunners, he seems to have his finger on the pulse. On a couple of occasions, he seemed to recognize the fact this is a very strange time for Star Wars fans. He could tell that the fandom really needed something of a boost, and he doesn't want to let us down. So there was a bit of anxiety, but he seems pretty confident fans are going to love it, and I'm sure we will. But I have to admit I didn't expect him to take this kind of shot at other Disney Plus shows. But I think we're beyond a point where people are pretending that everything is hunky-dory. Even Lucasfilm executives and showrunners are saying it. He's saying, I get it. It's important to get these things right. And the ironic thing is, for someone who claims to not care much about the overall Star Wars universe, he seems to give more of a sausage than most when it comes to wanting to please Star Wars fans and give us something exciting, something different, but also, and here's a very important thing he mentioned, something we still recognize nonetheless as being part of the overall Star Wars universe. A lot of the criticism surrounding Andor after the first season was that while it's well written, it doesn't feel like it's part of the Star Wars story. And there are many fans who think Star Wars should always relate back to the Jedi, even if those stories aren't about them. I see that perspective, but to me, even if we don't have Jedi or Sith, it still captures the heart of George Lucas's anti-authoritarian message. The little guy against the establishment. And I'm respectful of everyone's opinion, so if it doesn't do it for you, more power to you, great. But personally, I love what Tony's done, and I can't wait for Season 2. Something else Tony Gilroy speaks about is the question of if Cassian ever finds his sister. He was asked if the quest for Kerry is going to come back in the final season. I don't know if you guys remember, but Marva telling Cassian to give up his search was Tony's way of saying that Cassian needs to move on. But coming up to Season 2, his answer is pretty interesting. He says that we all carry things that are unresolved. They motivate us in interesting ways. So I think how his childhood motivates him is far more interesting than answering that question, than closing some circle of mystery. That is the most perfect response, and it demonstrates how truly talented a screenwriter Tony is. And he's right, in life, we don't always get the answers we seek. We don't always get to patch things up. Oftentimes things are left unresolved. We don't often get the answers we think we need. We don't always get to make amends with friends and family. Sometimes it's those we've lost, but that pain, that uncertainty, those questions, they guide us and they shape us in ways we don't expect. And for Cassian, that's his sister, and that reflects the real world. I've unfortunately lost people in my life where I wish, there was one or two things I could say to them, even if it's as simple as telling them that in spite of how much we fought, I still love them, I still care about them. In the case of Cassian, it adds to his loss, but more than anything, it drives him for belonging, drives him to fight back, similar to the way Saw Gerrera lost his sister. And like I say, it makes him human. It shows that in life, some relationships, some life events are not always resolved with a neat bow. Sometimes it's more about the drive it gave you to change the circumstances of your life, to find that belonging, to better yourself, even if it comes at the cost of grief. It may not be as literal as a sister, but I think to a great degree more of us are like Cassian than we want to admit. If only X, Y, and Z had happened. If only I'd been a better friend. If only I hadn't missed out on that promotion. If only I had told that person how much they meant to me. Everything would be perfect. Everything would work itself out. But that's not the case. Because sometimes you don't get to know how the alternative would have been. You just have the now. Where those feelings got you today. That's what matters. For Cassian, it was his drive to find belonging. If only I could find Kerry, I would find my people, find my sister, and find family. So I definitely think the way Tony frames this is very honest, very human, complex, and just the perfect answer. And he also talks about Nemik, the manifesto, and his legacy in the rebellion now that he's gone. Specifically the ending of his manifesto. Remember this. Try. For a couple of years now, fans have said it kind of flips Yoda's words on their head because Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. But Tony didn't realize this when he wrote it, but he loves the poetry in retrospect. And he says there was no part of him that tried to make that connection, not even subconsciously. And he says no one at Lucasfilm told him to do it, but he adores the fact it adds a different perspective. And he wants fans going into the original trilogy with a different viewpoint, especially where it concerns the different philosophies at play. He often talks about his characters as if they're choir members. They all have their own voice, and they add something different, but they contribute to the overall sound. And he does confirm a theory that I kind of touched upon the other day. Luthen is a bit of a provocateur. Gilroy says he's an accelerationist, and I have a theory that both he and Clea, like we saw in the special look, are going to contribute to the damage during the Gorman massacre in order to make the Empire look worse, in the name of the greater good. And this is why I reckon he's going to cause big problems for Mon Mothma and the new Rebel Alliance. This is why it's going to be so fascinating to see what happens to Luthen. Does he make it? And forgive me, but I've kind of saved the best for last. Gilroy says we're going to learn Luthen's backstory in Season 2, who he was before. Do you guys remember in the monologue? He shares his dreams with ghosts. He talks about the equation he came up with 15 years ago. There has been speculation, is he a Jedi survivor? Is he Jedi adjacent? I really like the theory that Luthen is the parent of a Jedi who died during Order 66, and he's been trying to get revenge ever since. The fight against Palpatine is personal for him, and we're about to learn why. So excited for this. So those are some of the reveals from Tony. I think this guy gets it. Is he the savior of Star Wars? Well, that's what some fans are saying. He is definitely creating hype. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on all of it in the comments down below. Please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.